Israel, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah Brakatah, all my brothers, Yahweh Shema the Thumb, by Shem Yahweh Shah to all the sisters. I'm Officer of 50, Yahweh Yadai, with I.S.U.P.K Atlanta here in Decatur, 3353 Glenwood Road, Atlanta, Georgia. And tonight we're going to do a continuation. We're going to do a continuation on what we were talking about last week, and that is black Christianity is white supremacy. And last week, just to recap what we did last week, we talked about this. We started with this letter. It's a report called "Report on Slavery and Racism in the History of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary." And most seminaries, most of your black preachers today, they were teachers in the seminaries. They were learners or students in the seminary taught by the oppressor, to give them some type of religion, so to speak. But here today, from last week, we were talking about how the Southern Theological Seminary, how they played a hand in the slavery of our people, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, especially those Negroes and natives, the Gadites and Reubenites of the southeast region of this country. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to continue on talking about how the oppressor, through his religious institutions, how they, look at black people, Hispanics, and Native Americans according to, their own thought process. And just to go back, let's go back a little bit. We're going to go back to the actual beginning of the letter so we can get a baseline on what we're talking about for those that weren't in class last week to understand. It says, "Report on Slavery and Racism in the History of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary." The letter is written from the president of that particular school. It says, "We are living in an age of historical reckoning. Communities, nations, institutions, Christian churches, and denominations are now called upon to ask hard questions and, when necessary, to face hard realities. This is true of the Southern Baptist Convention, and it is true for the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary." So this article, this letter, this report that we're going to read, it is talking about the Southern Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. The Southern Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, they're basically the education wing of the white supremacist religious organizations, which are your Methodist Church and your Baptist Church and all these other Christian denominations. This is where a lot of those preachers go to get, the information, to get the knowledge that they bring forth to their congregation on Sundays, via being clergy in their community. It says in that letter, it says, "In the larger secular world, just about every major institution of American public life is being called to account for some aspect of its history. The cultural conversation, often confused and intense, is far from over. I also believe that no secular worldview can bear the weight of this reckoning. Thanks be to God, we hold to a theology grounded in Holy Scripture that is able to bear this weight." So these oppressors, they have come out in this letter and said that the Holy Scriptures can bear the weight of this reckoning. And what the reckoning is, that's the fact that some Christian organizations have played a part in the American slave trade. It also says, "We know that evil is not merely moral wrong, it is sin, and a falling short of the glory of God and the breaking of God's commandments." It says, "We understand the wrong of American slavery and segregation to be sin, a rebellion against God's creation of human beings equally in His image." Well, they were wrong about that last sentence I just read, where it says, "We understand the wrong of American slavery and segregation to be sin." Now, it wasn't sin to put a person in slavery. That's not a sin. Because if you know anything about this Bible, the children of Israel went in and out of captivity based on the fact of not being obedient to the Most High, and not being obedient to what the Most High has asked of us. And when we're not obedient to what the Most High asked us to do, we go into slavery. And just so we can get a concept of why that is, we're gonna go into the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 68. We got anybody else on the line? Anybody else called in? Anybody else called in?
Salaki out of one.
Go ahead.
Yahanna, Trooper Marshall checking in.
Yes. Shalom. Yahanna. You two all?
I'm 2 all out of one. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I can't complain about too much in that. Look, can you pull? You got your sword on you?
I'm okay, sir.
Look, I need you to pull out that two-edged sword and go to Deuteronomy chapter. We're gonna go down to verse 68. Start with verse 15. But yeah, wait a minute, hold on, just for a second. In this article, before I go any further, anybody else chimed in other than True Marshall? All right, hear nobody. In this article, it say we understand the wrong of American slavery and segregation to be sin, a rebellion against God's creation of human beings equally in His image. Now, that statement is not a true statement, because the Most High is for slavery, and slavery was a punishment